Hey Fulton, it's Sarah, and this is my last product. I wanted to make a video about how to write poetry, but I realized that my face being in the video was not as important as my voice, and Miss Cinco taught us a cool way to screen cap my computer and voice over it, so I thought I'd give it a try. This semester I learned a lot about poetry, and the main thing is I learned it comes in all forms, and that's important when you start writing. A great author, Percy Shelley, said, "Poetry lifts the veil from the hidden beauty of the world and makes familiar objects be as if they were not familiar." I learned a lot about this because I kept trying to write about things that were familiar to me in a familiar sense. But I think that writing makes things take a different form, and poetry lifts a veil from things that other types of writing in literature do not speak of. And I think that it does a great job of, like I said here, irrationally connecting to readers in a way that novels or short stories, nonfiction books do not really connect with the irrational side of our brains, but poetry does. It is concentrated because it's obviously, as we all know, shorter, and it's written in prose. It gets down to the thing of things, the thick of things. It doesn't spend a whole lot of time developing plot. There is no plot, and it focuses on theme. Theme is central to poetry. Approach. These are different types of poems. There's stanza, which is like 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. There's quatrain. There's couplet, which is the two lines that rhyme. It's a couple. Ballad, elegy, which is very sad poetry about mournful things. Epic, which is obviously like Oedipus and Odysseus. There's a lyric poetry, can be considered songs, but also like psalms in the Bible. Narrative, which tells a story, and sonnet, which is what Shakespeare is most famous for. This semester I read a lot of modern poetry. That was my focus. And modern poetry is free verse, some lyric, and a lot of stanza. There's not much sonnet or quatrain or couplet or ballad. That's more of romantic and naturalist times in the 16 and 1700s. Approach. My main thing I think I learned this semester is approach to poetry is hard. How to write a poem. Approach is how you write a poem. It's all about how you start. It's not really about how you finish, because starting is hard, but once you get a good start, it's really not hard to complete a poem. They're not very long. It's not like a novel where you get stuck on the third chapter and you have 50 left. I started writing, and I would try to write about something. A tree, or the ocean, or my friends, or my left toe. It didn't matter. But I couldn't do it because I was trying to focus on my emotions, but something other than myself. And I couldn't figure out how to do that. Well, through reading other people's opinions and other poets' work and their opinions, I developed a strategy. It is emotion, motive, and vision. The most important thing when you're writing is to have emotion behind your words. And motive and vision are more of about the emotion. So if you have like reason to write and you have like a vision of your emotion, then it's not hard to write at all. William Wordsworth said, he was a romantic poet. He said, "Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes origin from emotion reflected in tranquility." To me, this means that we get our themes and our reason for writing in spontaneous moments that we cannot predict, we cannot write down in these moments. Maybe you got a fight with your mom, maybe you won the lottery, maybe you stubbed your toe, maybe your best friend told you something that made your day. It really doesn't matter, but those moments are not predicted. Our emotions are not predicted. From one day to the next, I really don't know what I'm going to feel like at 2 p.m. tomorrow. But these emotions take origin, and then we write about them in tranquility. So basically, we see something beautiful and we want to write about it, but you're not going to take the time out of that moment to say, wait, let me get my pen out, I want to write. You're going to observe and you're going to collect your feelings, and then when you're back home or in a quiet place, that's when you can start to write. And I think a lot of times it's reversed. People sit down with pen and paper and they think, let me write, but they don't have anything to say. That's what I did a lot. I sat down and I was like, okay, I need emotion. But that doesn't happen. That emotion comes from something else. It doesn't come from a blank page. And then we let our feelings flow. And he wrote about a lot of light things, not necessarily light, but more acceptable topics. And then Philip Larkin was a poet I read. He was a modern poet from the 20th century. And he said, deprivation is for me what daffodils were to Wordsworth. So basically, he had a deeper, darker inspiration, but it works the same for him as daffodils and natural things work for Wordsworth. And I think it's cool how the two authors, how the second made a quote based on the first, and they're both really great authors, poets, I should say. Okay, so this is basically some of what I just said. The approach is emotion, and it's felt in chaos, written in quiet. Poetry is a reflection of something previously felt, and a great saying is lack of emotion creates imitation. So if you don't have your own inspiration, then your poem is just going to be an imitation of someone else's. That happened to me because I kept reading other authors' poems and trying to write what they wrote, but that's not the case. You're just supposed to see how they did it, not copy it. This is a book, Poetry in the Making, by one of my favorite modern poets, Ted Hughes. He wrote this book because the 20th century was a time when poetry was becoming more accepted and more widespread. He was trying to get young readers and writers into poetry, and this book kind of explains some of his earlier poems and how he approached them, and I read parts of it. He actually helped me a little bit. He said this fox on the front of the book is one of the things he's written about, and he talked about how, let's say you're writing about an animal, you can't write well enough about that animal from your own perspective. You have to think about what it would be like to be that animal and try to get in there every day. Try to walk in, like if I were a fox, try to walk in the woods and see what they eat and hear the grass that crunches under their feet and hear the coyote chasing after them. It's important to understand fully what you're writing about because that's where we get our inspiration from. Now, I really like some things he says, and the idea is he was trying to make poetry more accessible to teenagers, and I think he did a really good job. E. E. Cummings, this is my other poet I wanted to talk about when it comes to writing. He had this quote, and it's from his play Him. E. E. Cummings is obviously famous for his love poetry, and he also wrote this play called Him, and this quote helped me write this semester. He said, relax and give the play a chance to strut its stuff. Relax. Stop wondering what it is all about. Like many strange and familiar things, life included, this play isn't about, it simply is. Don't try to enjoy it, let it try to enjoy you. Don't try to understand it, let it try to understand you. This is something that I feel applies to poetry. Stop trying to wonder what it's all about. It just is. So when we're reading other people's poems, we do try to wonder what it's all about. That's our goal, to understand their motives. But when you're writing, don't try to wonder what you're writing about. Just let it happen. Life happens. We don't plan day to day. And you can't plan your emotion. When you feel it, it's very important to just go with it because that's when we produce pure and original ideas. And that's what I learned this semester, that all these poets had really, really great poems that came from awful and great things that happened to them. Like Sylvia Plath, being one of my favorite authors, wrote brilliant literature, but she was crazy and she had a lot of things that happened to her and she had a lot of struggles, but her pure emotion that was really about her life produced great literature, and I think it's easier to write about emotions that we all have than just random things. Like most great poets, their work came from inspiration. E.E. Cummings, it said that a lot of his great poems came from his first wife. She inspired a lot of them. And Shakespeare, same thing. Everyone knows what these great poets were writing about. It's pretty, like most of it is known because it's just so real and tangible, the emotion that they write about. It can't be fake. And that's what I learned, that poetry is not something to be imitated. It's something to be original. And that can be very challenging, but that's basically the main thing I learned this semester. And I read a lot of stuff along the way that taught me a lot of literary devices and writing devices and structural techniques as well. This is one of my favorite poems by E.E. Cummings, and I wanted to close with it. It is, I carry your heart with me. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And wherever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my truth. And it's you, or whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing, it's you. Here's the deepest secret nobody knows. Here's the root of the root and the bud of the bud, and the sky of the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than soul and hope or mind high. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart.